Hi, my name's Dr. Robin Bond, and I'm a scientist. A lot of people have asked me, how do you become a scientist? That's a tough question, and it doesn't have one answer. There are lots of kinds of scientists. And by lots of kinds of scientists, I don't mean that there are geologists and biologists and chemists and physicists and astronomers. What I mean is there are a lot of different functions within the scientific community that you could fill as a scientist. So it helps to understand what science is and what it isn't. If your sole exposure to science was in elementary school or middle school or even high school, chances are you weren't doing actual science. Chances are pretty good that what you were doing was learning science facts. Here's how you know if you were one of those people who was learning science facts. What you did was get some information from textbook, from a video, from your teacher just sitting there and talking at you, yap, 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 yap. And then you were expected to take all that information and put it back on the test, exactly what you learned. That's learning science facts. It is not doing science. So, what is science? Science is a way of figuring things out. It's a process. Think about what it would be like to become an auto mechanic. Let's say you want to fix cars for a living. Okay, so you could get out a textbook and you could look at pictures and figure out what each component of a car looks like and what it does within the car. But that's very different from being an auto mechanic where someone brings you their car and says, hey, my car's doing something weird. Figure it out. Fixing a car is a process. And in order to engage in that process, you need to know certain facts. You need to know what the parts of the car are. You need to know what they do. So you need those facts as a foundation. But that's not everything about the process. That's sort of the way it is in science. We figure things out. Science is a specific way of figuring things out about the world. And in order to be part of that process that we go through in science, you have to know a few things. Just like a mechanic has to know, what in the world does an alternator do and what does it look like? We use those science facts as a foundation, but it's not the entirety of the process. So, when you say, hey, what do I have to do to be a scientist? What I want to ask you is, where do you want to fit into that scientific process? Do you want to be the person who comes up with the big ideas? Do you want to be the person who tests those big ideas? Do you want to be the person who takes ideas that have been tested and found to be generally true and turns them into something that's useful for society? Those are all very different parts of the scientific process, and they require very different training. If what you want is to implement the science, you might consider a degree in engineering, which is taking science and applying it to real-world situations. If you want to test ideas, what you want to do is get a bachelor's degree and possibly go on to get a master's. And if you're one of the people who wants to come up with the big ideas, well then you should probably think about getting a doctorate degree. Learning the process of science is kind of like the old medieval apprentice system where you started as an apprentice, you learn basic tasks, and then you learn more complex tasks as a journeyman, and then finally you can become a master craftsman who teaches other people. So that's sort of what you get as you proceed through undergraduate and graduate school, and then finally having your doctorate degree. Come back next week for part 2 of Becoming a Scientist, where I talk about what you can do before college to prepare for a career in science. As always, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already.